Hey everybody, welcome to Freedom Talk. I'm really pleased to welcome a friend, Shiry Sapir, to talk with us about the current situation in Israel and the war with Gaza and what's going on in the United States. Welcome, Shiry.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Shiry, it's so great to have you back on Freedom Talk. I know it's been a while. The show was much different back when we talked, but tell our audience a little bit about yourself. I understand that you served in IDF, and just give us a little background in regards to this issue.
Yes, thanks for having me again. I am from Israel. I served in the military like we all do. And the recent events, I think, show us exactly why it's a good idea for everybody in Israel to go through that training. It really is commendable to see how many citizens are now stepping up and without even a military order, just show up. They put their uniforms on and show up to save their country. And it's a beautiful thing. I've lived in the United States now for 24 years. I do real estate. I'm living my little American dream with my husband and our 3 kids. And in the last 4 years, things have shifted from just thinking that life is all good to, oh my goodness, there's a lot of bad things happening. And the mama bear in me is the one that really woke me up to it. It's the COVID protocols that were outrageous against our kids. It's then the unfolding of the curriculum and the indoctrination that has been happening for a lot longer than the last few years, but we're really waking up to it. And especially I'm a young mom, so I did not really know. I was not part of the education system in America. So suddenly we've taken this role of fighters, unbeknownst to us. We didn't really want to, we didn't really mean to. And I decided to run for office here in Arizona, running for Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is in essence the education secretary, to fight for the kids. And sadly, I did not win, but we had a great movement. We had tremendous success in the grassroots and a lot of waking up of people, if nothing else. I think that's probably the biggest net win from my 18 months of campaigning. And now with the unbelievable anti-Semitism that is rising, and it's not rising, it's just exposing itself. It's been here for a very long time, and it's been fostered in the education system specifically. Now I'm finding myself fighting on a different front of justifying why Jews have the right to live.
Yeah, it's amazing to see it. It's very concerning, very disheartening. You know, we live in a Judeo-Christian culture here in the U.S. We're people of the book, at least how our country was founded. Yes. And there's so much I want to ask you, both on a personal level, but also sort of on the political level. One of the things that I'm seeing, Shiry, is that people are taking some influencers, some people who have a loud megaphone on social media, you might say, they're taking the viewpoint of, well, we don't want to be sending money to Ukraine. And I understand that. I'm not going to get into that issue. But then they've become just purely, let's not send money anywhere, maybe anti-war. I don't know if that's the right word, but I try to tell people I don't equate Ukraine and Israel. I think they're very, very different. What would you say to people like this who are just saying, look, we don't need to be involved in any other wars. We shouldn't be supporting Israel or sending money to Israel?
Well, I'm an America First person, regardless of me being Israeli. I think America needs to shut off the faucet of just money, hard taxpayers' money, hard-earned money just being spent on useless wars around the globe. I don't believe in that. But Israel is, and I am, as subjective as I can be on this, Israel is a strategic partner for the United States. It is important for the United States to have one point of interest in the Middle East that is a friend, that is a definite friend. And so if they cut that off, they may have a problem in the future. And I think the United States understands that. Maybe the common people don't understand it, but the United States understand it because you see that since October 7th, there have been quite a few targetings of United States bases around the Middle East. So it's not, if unless the United States wants to completely remove itself from that region, they have to have someone. And that's, I think, the interest for sending money and protecting Israel.
Well, as an American person, it's kind of a two-pronged question, but do you think this could have happened under Trump? And why do you think it's happening under this administration?
No, I don't think this could have happened under Trump. Trump was, as crazy as some people might have thought he was, the crazier people understood him very well. And the aggression of Russia would have probably not happened. This would have never happened. And if it did, I'm telling you, the response, and I know some people are praising Biden for what he's doing, even in Israel, and I'm a little, it is what it is. But if Trump was in this position right now, things would have looked completely different. And I really do believe that attack probably would have not happened. I think a lot of the money that is being funneled to Iran would have stopped. There were hundreds of millions being given, or billions given to Iran, supposedly as their money. It's not their money. I don't care. Why are we always playing by the rules, but with terrorists? That wasn't their money. That should have never been released. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan talked about peace through strength. That's a concept that actually goes back a couple thousand years. I think it was Emperor Hadrian who talked about it in the Roman Empire. But there is this difference where I think a lot of the world feared trying things like this on Trump's watch because he didn't hold back. He'd say, what was he said recently? If you spill a drop of American blood, we're going to spill gallons of yours. I mean, call that rhetoric if you want, but I think he would back that up. And it's the unfortunate thing is that we have some very evil people in the world that only understand strength, only understand eye for an eye. So I think Hamas came in league with Hezbollah, I'm sure, and thought, well, the U.S. has a weak president. The universities, the left are going to be on our side, and they chose this time for an attack. They also probably recognized that Israel was politically divided at the time. And I want to ask, did Hamas miscalculate in what they did? Did they miscalculate the Israeli will and the chance that the people would actually come together and this would be a unifying event?
I think they did. The political environment in Israel in the last year was really unacceptable. And I'm really sorry to say, but when people go against their leader, and I disagree with Bibi Netanyahu on quite a few things, and I do believe that you cannot rule a country for 20 years and expect to not make, some wrong decisions along the way. But the turmoil and the paid, just very much like what we saw in the United States, the paid agitators that were flooding the streets in Israel, creating that chaos, definitely sent a signal of we're weak. This is the time to do this. At the same time, I think they did not expect us to, or the Israelis to come together so quickly, not only politically, but also the problem in the tear in the fabric of the Israeli society is the idea of those who are on the left or the extreme left who think, some of them do think that Israel is the occupier of itself. This is the very extreme left. And the moderate left who thinks we should really make peace with these people. I think the massacre and genocide that happened October 7th woke up and kind of created a consensus among a lot of the Israelis that no, there is no partner in Hamas. Hamas is the Palestinians at this point because they've elected Hamas and they have kept them in power and they're not rising against it. So for as long as this is a representative of these people, then there is not going to be any peace. And they will not stop at anything to kill every Jew they can. And, it's one thing to get killed by a bomb or get shot. It's a whole different thing to be cut into pieces, to be mutilated, to be raped, to be burnt alive, to be cut into pieces in front of your family and your children. It's just the things that they have done don't show we just want a piece of your land. This shows we want you gone and we want you destroyed. And I think Israel is finally waking up to that.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think there are a lot of things at play here. One is that a lot of people on the left are incredibly naive. They have no understanding of history, no understanding that the Palestinians and some of their supporters in the Arabic-speaking world have always wanted to push Israel into the sea. They've wanted to eradicate Israel. They haven't been interested in peace. And I went through several of the wars that have happened over time, the Yom Kippur War and the various ones. And in every case, I saw that this was brought to Israel, that Israel was attacked and on the defensive. So I think they don't understand that. And I know in public education, we've had Marxism through the Chinese Communist Party, through others taking over our school systems. Kids aren't learning history anymore. I had to fight that for my older kids and teach them history myself. You know what they say, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. So I think that's a huge problem. I think there's incredible ignorance that people on the left think that radical Muslims would support them. And I have many Muslim friends, and I'm quite certain that most or all of them that I know would condemn this kind of savagery. I wondered that about Israel. I'd heard that there are people on the left that cause this kind of division and perception of weakness. Now we see people in America that are saying we're Jews for Palestine. What do you make of that movement?
Self-defeating practice. I think we've seen that throughout the history. We do know that a majority of the Jewish population in the United States is liberal. I've been asked on the campaign trail so many times, how is it possible, Shiry? How is it possible that so many Jews are not Republicans? And I have a couple of theories, but it doesn't really matter. These people are wrong. And, there are only 15 million Jews in the entire world.
Yeah, I was shocked when Kara Surya told me that. Kara Surya from American Thought Leaders, Jan Kulik's show, said that. She said there were like 14 or 15 million Jews in the world. I was shocked. I had no idea.
I know. We have about 8 million in Israel, and the rest are, the biggest part of them is in the United States and then around Europe and other places. When you're looking at the numbers and the charts in the Arab world, you have 10 Jews in Saudi Arabia, and you have mostly 0 in most of them. And when you're looking at the map, it's massive. And there's this tiny little country with some people who just want to live, but for some reason, the world historically just enjoyed thoroughly by trying to just completely eliminate these people off the face of this earth. And it's amazing that they have not succeeded yet, to be honest with you. But that's just the situation that we're in. And sadly, I have young children, and you have to explain that to them. And I never thought, you're talking about never forget, and the Holocaust, which just happened, just happened 80 years ago. But people forget. People deny today what happened October 7th, 4 weeks ago. They tell us it didn't happen. So when you hear that, you're thinking to yourself, wow, that level of ignorance is not something you can fix. And we shouldn't really be concentrating on trying to fix that. What we should try to fix and amplify is the knowledge of others. And as you mentioned, the schools are a huge part of the problem. We just had a huge fight this week here in Scottsdale where, the school clubs have Amnesty International and UNICEF. They are as school clubs. You would think a club in a school would be chess or something productive for the wholesomeness of a child. But no, it's all activism. And they were in there in front of 60 children in a mandatory meeting telling them about the genocide ways of Israelis killing all these poor Palestinian children, just slide after slide after slide, not mentioning once October 7th. If nothing else, they just mentioned this, what prompted them to go back into Gaza, from which they pulled back in 2005, mind you. And so we had a huge outrage, and this is kind of still being handled with the district. But we have to understand that this is happening not only in universities and campuses. It starts a lot earlier than that. And that's why they're all very well groomed in the first and second semester in the university. And if something isn't done, and it's not just, we're just going to teach a little bit about the Holocaust by statute. You have it in a lot of states. Well, they never, ever make the connection between the Holocaust and the formation of the Israeli state. They somehow, oh, just Holocaust, they killed them. Don't be anti-Semitic. But hey, there is a country that is illegitimate called Israel, and from the river to the sea, it needs to be now of the Palestinian people.
Oh,
Because
and they're absolutely lying when they say that's just like a motivational slogan or something. That's been something I read about when I was a teenager. I read Oh Jerusalem, novel about the founding of the state, and I have to say this: what happened October 7th was not the first time, because I was reading about these kinds of atrocities that happened back when Israel was trying to form a state. I hate to be graphic, but pregnant women being ripped open and corpses mutilated, just all kinds of just pre-civilizational barbarity.
Right.
It's not the first time. And it's so difficult to watch. And I want to tell young people, look, you first of all, you haven't learned history in school, and what you did has been Marxist oriented, which puts people into two classes: the oppressor and the oppressed. Reality is never that distinct. It's never that black and white. There are two sides to every story. I know back when those things happened, some of the Israelis did the same in response. So that's not acceptable. But these people on the left talk about decolonization. What does that mean when you think about it? What, are we going to kill off all the people of European stock in the US, and are we going to kill off all the Israelis? I mean, what do you mean by decolonization?
That's exactly what they're talking. That's how ignorant that is. Yes,
that's a very troubling term.
It is, but they love using. You see, the problem is that the left has created all of these terms. This has been a long time in the making, right? They are making all these terms. They're creating this narrative. They are brainwashing the kids with that, who have very little context to what they're saying. Oh, it's horrible to be a colonizer. Well, every country is a colonizer. I mean, unless I just came back from Belize, last month.
Yeah.
Talking to their people. The people that are there now, they're not the indigenous people, the Mayans that were there before. So get them the hell out of Belize now. All the Belizeans should get out with that rationale. You can't do this. This is just the occupation of the world through humankind had been through war and occupation. But it is, if there is one country that can go back 5,000 years and say, hey, we were there, because there is the Bible that is written in it is Israel. Actually, the only border that we do know for a fact existed without being any kind of occupation taking place is Israel. And that's the one that everybody is arguing over and love arguing over. And if you went to any of these children and said, you know what, fine, the Palestinians should have that country. What are you going to do with the Jews? Where should their home be? I don't think any of them will be able to give you that answer, because they are putting Star Davids on every store in Europe right now. They are really bringing us back to Holocaust days, big time. They're stabbing people in the streets in France. The guy just got killed here in Los Angeles the other day. I mean, it's getting to be really aggressive out there. So is it anti-Zionist or is it anti-Semitic? And they're trying to jump between the terms, but it is one. It's just killing all the Jews. And I hate to say it, I tell people, I don't like to be a victim. I never used anti-Semitism as a tool for me. Oh, you don't like me, you don't vote for me because I'm Jewish. Never, ever, ever. But I have to tell you, after October 7th specifically, not that I didn't know before, but after October 7th, I know they want Jews dead. And there's a lot of hatred and misconception about Jews, even though they brought so much light and so much invention for as small people as they are. If you look at most of the greatest people, from Einstein to others, most of the inventions, and I hate to take credit for it as a people, but it came from the Jewish mind. So maybe you don't really want to completely eliminate it for the sake of the world.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fathering in a World Gone Mad. I'm your host, Kelly Walker. I hold a bachelor's in theology and a master's science degree. I chose to include a segment on reconciling science and religion because the topic is more important than a lot of people realize, especially for our children. And frankly, many churches have been failing our youth in this area. I have come to see through my studies that both science, which we call the book of nature, and scripture, which we call the book of God's word, tell virtually the same story, but from different perspectives. I've written with Roy Abraham Varghese, who, among other books, wrote There is a God with Not crossed out, in which he interviews Sir Anthony Flew, who was the world's foremost atheist for 50 years, literally a man who debated with C.S. Lewis and convinced Sir Anthony Flew that there is a God. I've heard a lot of Christians say, look, this is an interesting topic, but is it really a matter of salvation? Well, I have to say it very well could be. And I'm not pulling that off the top of my head. This is something that surveys and studies have shown. And at the very least, helping your kids understand this issue prior, if possible, to going into higher education, prior to going out into the world, is going to really spare them a lot of crisis and a lot of pain. Yeah, and Howard Zinn is a Marxist so-called historian who wrote a book. Let me look up the name of it again here. A People's History of the World, or the United States, I believe it was. And what I want to tell young people, or anyone who's buying into these things, is the world was a world of conquest for many, many thousands of years. I mean, the weak overcame the strong. There were struggles for resources. It was just the way things were. And to go back to one moment in time and say, oh, well, these people colonized, we're talking about things that happened a long time ago. And right now we have the opportunity in the U.S. to be one nation, to e pluribus unum, the melting pot, bringing many people together and having one national identity. And what the Marxists are doing is dividing us into tribes, making us see each other as different, which will lead to violence. Because look at some of the Eastern European countries where you have Serbians and Muslims versus this person and that person. You have these different tribes warring. And that was one of the things that was supposed to be different about the U.S., that we're all going to come together and we celebrate that diversity, if you want to say, that people come from many lands, but everybody comes to be. I would like to take these young people and say, look, it's because I love you that I want you to know the truth. And you have been indoctrinated. You're carrying out the same ideologies that have led to mass murders in the past, but it's very hard to get their attention because suddenly you're labeled as a white oppressor, the patriarchy, all these different labels they have. And I mean, you can be Black, you can be Hispanic with Spanish as your first language, and they're still going to call you a white supremacist and all these names if you don't toe the Marxist line. But let me shift a little bit, because you did live in Israel for quite some time. What was your experience with the relationship of the people of Gaza and Israel? I understand that a lot of people would come from Gaza to work in Israel. Did you see an oppressive environment? Did you see a lot of racism going on? I don't even know if you can call it racism, but
right.
Prejudice against the Gazans, you might say.
When I was there, that was, when I was a kid. So I'm 44 now. So let's take us back, 30 years ago, when my father had a couple of workers, because he was in construction and in restaurant, and they would come to our house. They will be very respectful, take their shoes off, when they come in. It was very, it was like family. So, his name was, one of them was Ahmed. He was to me, he was like an uncle. There was no problem there. My father speaks Arabic and everything was fine. But at the same time, my brother was a soldier and we knew what was going on in Gaza. And then at the same time, in my school, I remember one day looking out the window, there were yellings and a Palestinian was stabbing a student outside of my school. So there was always that feeling that, yes, there are people, good people there that really wanted peace. And especially 30 years ago, I know there were. But the problem is that this generation that we're dealing with right now has been brainwashed. And we have, I watch the Israeli news all the time, and they have a lot of documentaries and things, different shows, and they go in and they show us their schools and their textbooks. And these kids, at age 5 or 6, are already being, they're holding a Kalashnikov. It's plastic, but they're teaching them that type of philosophy. And so these kids are doomed to grow to be killers. It's really not their fault, but it's just what has been created in the last 30 years, worse than the generation before them that maybe thought they were fighting over some land. At some point, Arabs and Jews fought together against the British, right? So there was some unity there. And some of the Palestinians that we're looking at today, that's why it's so complex. They're not all the ones that were there from before. There were so many refugees that came from other places. You see that none of the Arab countries not opening their door, not for one refugee, which should really tell you the story. It's like, why in the world are you not opening your doors for your fellow Muslims? I think the reality that I had living there and growing up, but then, there was the war with Iraq and us sitting in, with our gas masks in the room. I was 7 or 8 at the time. So there was always, if it wasn't the Palestinians, it was the Iraq. Somebody wanted to get rid of us at any point of our life. It doesn't matter, So, so that's what we just kind of used to. And at the same time, we brought them home and they bring them into Israel to work and they give them citizenship. And so many of them get the same benefits as a citizen, even though they don't serve in the military. There is all of these things because Israel is an enlightened democracy. It really tried to do all these things. But the indoctrination and the hatred that is being fostered in Gaza, and you see right now, they're trying, and we're seeing video after video of these women, they're yelling. Israel is trying to escort them out to the other side of Gaza to be able to bomb, right? And the Hamas telling them, we're going to slaughter you. You go right back to where you came from. So Israel was never the problem for the biggest problem for the Palestinians. Their problem was really, really bad leaders from Arafat all throughout the years they were just seeking money, which they've been able to gather a whole bunch of, get rich, and see their people killing. Their value of human life cannot resemble any of the Western world, definitely not Israel or the United States.
Typically leave it to the radical left to get things completely backward. The world witnessed, 1,000 plus, 1,400 people slaughtered without any warning, many of them at an event celebrating life. And this horrific attack happened, and the left comes out and talks about Israel committing genocide and Israel being violent. And it's just unbelievable. And what some of these people don't realize is, like Queers for Palestine, everybody says, rightly so, if you walked into Palestine with your purple hair and holding another man's hand or something,
you're dead.
Yeah, you're dead. That wouldn't happen in Israel. No,
yeah, I saw a banner saying reproduction rights equal free Palestine, and I said there's really no connection there. I don't know what you guys. That's why it's so liberal and it's so idiotic. Really, it's laughable, and these are lost cause, because if at this point of your life you have not been able to discern, at least have some curiosity in you to get some facts, then I have nothing to say to you, and we really don't need to try. But there's a lot of really good people and a lot of really good kids in this country, and I put the burden of their knowledge not only on the schools, but their parents and their churches. And I feel there is, and I'll take the risk of being hated for saying that, but I feel that parents have unloaded a lot of their responsibilities to TikTok.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And you're not going to yield the kind of child you want to have that is morally aligned with you and that even possesses a moral compass, if you're going to allow them to stay on TikTok, who is Chinese propaganda, or you're going to keep them in liberal institutions who tell them to hate America and all of these things. So this is where it really, if we're going to win this war, public opinion, the Western values as they are, as the best idea. I saw today a Lululemon having these Arab women's scarves, right now, this is their new trend. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? And not to say that I want them I don't want them to start advertising yarmulkes for men athletes either. I mean, it's dumb. It's unbelievable.
It's a look at me virtue signaling thing. But, if people who are still doing this, I'm just going to say, you're dumb as a bag of rocks. Get some education. Talk to somebody who knows about it. And I don't mean to be insulting, but these people have no concept of reality. I'm 54 years old. I've been studying the Middle East conflict for literally a good 40 plus years, more than 40 years. I've done my homework. I've read up on it. And then I have somebody who is in their second year of college informing me of the truth. And they have no concept of what they're talking about. They're literally just parroting ideologies and talking points that they've been told, but it's not based on reality. And I think I think social media does have a lot to do with that. But one bright spot that I see, Shiry, is it's always puzzled me how so many American Jews are Democrats, they're on the left, they're liberal. One bright spot is that now I think a lot of American Jews are seeing, look, this has gotten way too radical. They're starting to look at things differently. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I hope so. I've alienated a lot of the lefties as I was running for office. So I've had a lot of arguments with them about Israel too, because I would be perceived as a nationalist when I talk about Israel or when I talk about America. I am a white nationalist because I believe in these countries being sovereign and the best thing that ever happened to humanity. I believe in that strongly still. So I've alienated a lot of those friends. I see some of them crying right now and feeling really sad. And I don't know what it's really and how much is going to change. I'm hoping it will some. Some of them still holding on to Biden's kind of cooperating with Israel as a sign that being a Democrat is not so bad after all. They don't understand that since him and Obama loaded airplanes with cash and gave them to Iran 10 years ago, he fostered the attack that happened October 7th and any of the other ones that have occurred since. And really, people don't get the picture that Israel is under rocket attack on the regular all the time. Just we have good technology like Iron Dome and other anti-missile defense that is protecting thousands of civilians from being dead as we speak right now. Since October 7th, there were 8,000 to 10,000 rockets that have fallen. I speak to my dad or my mom on the phone, and I hear the siren in the background, and my dad is like, I'm going. He doesn't have a safe room. He goes to the kitchen with a pot on his head, and he's like, I hope God doesn't want to take me today, But what if we didn't? But he kind of trusts the missiles, right? The anti-missile Iron Dome, which has been an unbelievable blessing. But if Israel didn't have that, Israel would look like Gaza today.
It's just really, it's difficult to see people so deceived, and you want to wake them up. One thing that I've heard that some on the left are saying is they're sort of dismissing this carnage and butchery. And here's their line of thinking. Well, only a very desperate and oppressed people would go to those lengths. And still it's somehow Israel's fault. Like, well, they've been so oppressed that we really can't blame them. Tell me about that whole idea.
This is just the demoralization and dehumanization of Jews is a narrative, as I said, has been going on for a very long time. So it's really easy to say that. It's almost like saying, well, how would you feel if suddenly Native Americans are going to start coming here from Gila County and it's going to start running towards Payson or wherever they may be, or Indian Bend here in Scottsdale, and they're going to come across the 101 and they start just butchering us here in Scottsdale because, they've had enough. They can't really grow as people. They don't possess the kind of wealth that the white person does. They don't have the education, the opportunities. They don't live the American dream. It's time to start mutilating women, raping them, and burning them alive. It's their right. It's been 250 years in the making, or more, actually, 500 years in the making.
And that is where that kind of thinking can lead, because it's vilifying an opponent and dehumanizing them to the point where the ends justify the means. So you look at the fruit of what's happened. All these left-wing people are really misusing the word genocide. If Israel wanted to wipe out the Palestinians, they could have done it 1,000 times over. They never have tried to wipe out an entire culture of people. But the fruits are what we see is Jews around the world being attacked. Even in the U.S., this elderly man was hit on the head by a megaphone by a Hamas supporter and killed. Okay, where is his monument like George Floyd got?
Absolutely, exactly. No, because it's just another Jew. You think about talking about occupying. I mean, Russia has occupied Ukraine now for what? How long has it been? Over a year, 2 years almost?
It's been a while, yeah.
Why isn't Harvard students, aren't Harvard students going out there and saying with posters and saying enough, it's enough already? You know how much killing? And the Russians are not nice people either when they're brutally attacking these people. Why isn't any outrage there? Why don't they stop any Russian students in the campus and not allowing them to go from one side to another, like they have done at Harvard to this one Jewish student, or locking them in the libraries? Why isn't that done? You got to ask yourself, if it's a similar situation, if Israel is indeed at fault at occupying Gaza, well, Russia is at fault at occupying Ukraine. Why isn't there the same outrage?
I think, Shiry, it's because of intersectionality of this hierarchy of victimhood, and it's sort of a new caste system. Like the darker your skin is, the more you're a saint, you're a victim, and the lighter skinned you are, or if you're of European heritage, or even Hispanics that have light skin, you know, they're sort of the untouchables. They, you know, something happens to them, well, it's because of these centuries of oppression and, you know, patriarchy. I hate to see it, but police officers are afraid to confront people based on the color of their skin because of what the media could do. And I think people rightly point out all the time that some things that happen to whites or Hispanics or Asians do not get the press, but if it's a black person, it's going to get the press. And why are we rating people? Why are we assigning value to their worst based on skin color? That's not Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. It's not Mahatma Gandhi's dream. It's absolutely a warped worldview. It's almost like you hear about abused kids. They want so much to be different than their abuser that they turn out being just like them because they're constantly fixated on that instead of moving on with life. And I think it's the same with society. Yes, abuse has happened, but it happened to every people in every culture. There were white slaves at the founding of this country. We had the Barbary pirates who were taking people as slaves. That's why we have from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. The shores of Tripoli, I believe that's a reference to the people who were enslaved, Europeans and Americans.
I think it's the problem is that you're always talking with facts and history and reference to truth. And if we're gonna get really frustrated if we're gonna continue to try to use truth to defeat lies and deceit. We can't. We need to understand that this is the situation. We're in a place right now that many people around the world are demoralized and they're wrong. So how are we going to fix this? Well, there's so many items that need to be addressed today. And I see Germany is starting to address this. You know, Germany, they just yesterday, they put out and their counselor was really sharp when he spoke. I was really very impressed with what I heard, but they put out an article and they said, just so you know, you're going to go out in the streets and say pro-Hamas propaganda, you're going to jail. You're going to come here. We brought 3 million of you. You're not going to learn the language. You're out. You don't understand that you're in this country. And if every European country starts to do this, because you see the rise of the Muslim empire, as I see it happening, unless it's being stopped by leaders of the world, has been in the making now. And this is, again, I may sound Islamophobic, but you know, I am Islamophobic because they want to kill me. I'm Jewish, so I am afraid of them.
Yeah, but, that's a true sense of the etymology of that word. Yeah,
it is. It's exactly what it means. But they've been infiltrating countries. You know, and in the Quran, they say when you're subordinate to an enemy, you start to pretend and lie that you're weak, and you're going to be underneath their control until you get stronger, and then you must stab them in the back for what they've done to you. This is their teaching. It's not Christianity. There's no Jesus there. It's not Moses. This is their teaching. So they've been going refugees into European countries to the point that you cannot recognize some of these countries anymore. Spain, Italy, France, Sweden. Well, it's unbelievable. And if they're not going to wake up, this is how you do it, right? You're getting in your soldiers, and then you do the uprise. You don't try to come and attack from outside, because with today's technologies and all these things, wars are not, it's not fun so much. But if you're changing the culture, you're changing the minds of the people, you make your enemy put their guard down.
Yeah.
And take over. And I'm really sorry to say this is what we're seeing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And these European countries are learning a hard lesson, because all of these, like Angela Merkel and these others, they played on people's heartstrings and, oh, we've got to take in the poor refugees. Of course, there are people who should be granted asylum. Of course, there are people who should be able to come into countries because, for the most part, the Anglosphere, the English-speaking countries, and others have big hearts. But you're right; it's been an infiltration. It's been a coordinated plan. A lot of it coordinated by the Chinese Communist Party, and it's destroying from within because they know they can't face up to us militarily. So I'm 100% with you. I think we need to keep speaking truth and trying to wake people up, but ultimately we're going to have to put a stop to it. Right now, our southern border, as you're very aware, is wide open. I have Border Patrol people constantly reporting to me what's going on down there. You can watch Epic TV, the Epic Times, different sources. Ben Berkwam at Real America's Voice is doing a great job reporting on this. It is an invasion, and it's purposeful. Yes, and they're talking about military-aged men coming in large numbers.
Sure. Did you catch the exchange between Secretary Mayorkas and Josh Haley, Senator Haley?
Yes, yes.
Whatever. It was one of the most just blood-boiling exchanges I had seen, where there was a tweet out by somebody who was working at the under Mayorkas, putting out, Hamas is doing, just supporting Hamas flat out. Apparently, she works for the Homeland Security, and she's in charge of asylum, approvals and all that. And he kept pressing the secretary, "Did you fire her? Did you fire her?" And he kept saying, he was trying not to say. And then finally, "Oh, she's on administrative leave, so you're still paying her." And think about this: how many Hamas sympathizers or Hamas activists, more accurately, did she allow into this country? I would argue more than one. That's her job. They place these people in these jobs to get what they need done. And if that doesn't scare, it's amazing to me that she's still working for the United States of America. It's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and Mayorkas was so evasive, and you could tell he wanted to get into it with Senator Hawley, but he also knew that he could get himself into some trouble there. Props to Josh Hawley, man. That's a real man right there.
He's an amazing guy. He really needs.
I love him to death, and he's got to come on the show sometime. So we'll work on making that happen. But yeah, that's the kind of backbone that we need in this country. And I'm glad to say, Shiry, I've seen that there is maybe a thin line, but there is a line of patriots who are standing strong. And I urge you, if you're out there watching, get involved. And one of the things I've been working on actually today is we've been doing Freedom Talk for some time now. And I'm working on a page that talks about how many people are working, raising kids, very busy with their lives, and they can't necessarily take the time or the resources to fight the way that they'd want to. So get in touch with someone like me, like Freedom Talk, or someone local, and support them, because they'll do a lot of the fighting for you. And we've got to stand up, because we are in a fifth generation war that doesn't depend as much on soldiers with guns as it does on psychological warfare, truth versus error. I wanted to show you real quick, Shiry, a new series that we're launching. I don't know if I've told you about this, but I'm going to play a quick video. So we're just launching that. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes. Make fathers great again.
Yes.
Bring them back. Bring the fathers back. We need some toxic masculinity in this world.
Yes, we do.
On the good guys' side.
Yeah, and this series, you can actually go to realfreedomtalk.com. You can see a preview of each session. You can watch the first session for free, and it's an on-demand series, so people basically buy access to it. There's each of the episodes. There's study guides, support. We're going to do weekly dad chats, but I'm really excited because our video editor, who's just a wonderful guy, he just finished the Teddy Roosevelt episode last night, and it is so good. It could be like, I'm going to enter it in some award shows. But the reason I play this, Shiry, is that if we want to get ourselves out of this mess, out of this violent morass that could lead to World War III, the destruction of Western culture, we have to start by rebuilding the family. We have to rebuild our values and virtues. The founders of this country talked about how it's impossible to be free if you're not virtuous. And we have to get to that. Elections matter, boycotts can make a difference, but all of those things are on the outside. If we're being infiltrated and our culture is being degraded, we've got, like you said, we've got to work with our children. We've got to teach our children, take that in hand. And, I know you've heard it said, Shiry, but one of the upsides of the lockdowns, which by the way, were terrible, terrible policies that led to suicide and death. But one of the positive outcomes of that is kids were now learning at home, and parents were saying, wait a minute, what are they learning? What is this garbage they're teaching them? And I've actually just interviewed, because I'm writing an article for George Magazine, I just interviewed Seek Smith, who has Mom Army and Dad Army, Catalina Stube from Moms for Liberty, and then the Peterson Moms for America. We've talked about how we have to have this change from the inside, and we have to take back our culture one mind at a time. And we also talked about, dads, you need to get involved. So that's one of the things we're doing with the fathering series. It's fathering in a world gone mad because things are upside down. And obviously, the mama bears have been great. I hope you'll run again, because I voted for you when we lived in Arizona. I wanted to see you there. We have to have dads getting involved too. We can't let the mama bears take all of the heat. So dads, get up, get involved. I've actually been working with some members of Congress, because we are going to come back to this memo from Christopher Wray from the FBI and the DOJ targeting school parents. And it was interesting. I was talking to Seek today, and she said it was shocking when we found out about that memo, but it had the reverse effect from what was intended. It actually got people motivated to stand up more and to speak louder. And I know some people have been arrested. I know a school mom from Saurita who was put in prison for 5 days to teach her a lesson. You know about that. We've got to have the courage right now to stand up. And when you say we can't win through logic, that's true. I've seen a few people won over and switch and kind of wake up. They call it red pilled. But overall, we're going to have to live our values. We can't let anybody make us ashamed for what we believe. We can't be intimidated. And I just want to give you a message of hope. I talked to a mom from, I want to say Brooklyn or Long Island. She's been a follower of Freedom Talk and just really gave them a voice. I'm glad you came on too, because you aren't alone. I know Victor Marx is going back and forth between the U.S. and Israel, and he's helping kids and families from Gaza and Israel. But he doesn't hold back on saying, we've got to destroy Hamas. And those of you who are supporting them, you might as well just unfollow me, he says, because Victor has the experience to understand what's going on. But I just want to encourage everybody. Actually, I usually have this on my set here.
Thank you.
We do support Israel. Not some of the mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but we support Israel's right to exist. We are absolutely against anti-Semitism in all of its forms. And I'm shocked, Shiry, because, and I talked to Karis about this, who are fronting this wacky theory that this empire from the Middle Ages, this Khazarian empire, they displaced the Jews, and the Jews in Israel are not true Jews. And it's just a pretext for a brand new anti-Semitism. It sounds very much like what Hitler preached. I've even seen cartoons with like the hook-nosed Jew on it and things, and it's all reminiscent.
Look at the beautiful kids that got killed. Look at the picture after picture after picture, the most beautiful children that they took away from us. So yeah, trying to portray Jews as the ugly faces and the villains that they used to try to portray them is not going to work. We have the pictures. We know what Jews look like. We know what Jews are. And, all of the efforts that we have to, I think, put the most, energy into is exactly the things that you're working on. It's the reminding people, and that's what I'm saying. The churches are key. The homeschooling is key. The parents
Yep.
take the time to sit to have dinner with your children, sit down with them, hug them, talk these things with them. They'll believe you before they believe anyone else. But the reason they believe everyone else but you, because you're not sitting to have dinner with them. You're on your phone. They're on their phone. This is, and the other empires that we see rising, and it's two, the Muslims and the Chinese empires that I see. You can see them, right? You can see geographically, demographically, they stick so closely to their culture. And I mean, you have Sharia law courts around England, and we all know what Sharia law means, and they allow them to have their own courts.
Chinese Communist Party's police stations in the U.S.
It's unbelievable. Think about this for a second. I mean, yeah, our laws are good for our people, but yeah, if you're from China or if you're an Arab, yeah, we're gonna let you have your own rules in our own country. That's dangerous and ludicrous and outrageous, really. And so, but the good thing that we learn from them is that they stick to who they are. And so, no Lululemon, no, we don't need to wear Habib or whatever to look like them. They need to assimilate. When I came to this country, I did not expect anyone to put mezuzah on their door or put a Star David on their neck. No, I don't expect that. I came here to comply with the laws of this country and to assimilate with the culture of this country. That's what I came to this country.
If you're going to gain citizenship, you need to be a citizen. You know, we need to close the borders and have everybody learn once again. They have to pass a test, a citizenship test. That absolutely needs to happen. The left loves to talk about systemic racism and institutionalized racism. Who has been subjected to more systemic racism than the Jews? I mean, I have an English degree, a bachelor's degree. I read the works of Shakespeare, Merchant of Venice. You have the Jew Shylock. He's wants his pound of flesh. He's the greedy moneylender. You know, all throughout culture and history for a long time, there's been this systemic desire to vilify the Jews. I mean, when the Black Plague happened swept across Europe, people accused Jews of poisoning the wells. And we look back and we say, well, the Jews didn't have it as much because of the Old Testament, the laws of sanitation. We know now about germ theory, and we know where is the left. Talk about systemic racism or systemic prejudice. Okay, come on, left. Where are you?
But it's not just prejudice. I wish you just, you know, if you just didn't like me because I'm a Jew and you decided that the way I handle money is a certain way, or the way I may look a certain way, hate me. I don't care. The racism against Jewish people, the anti-Semitism, is a very different kind of prejudice. It's one that calls for your killing.
It's actual genocidal ideology.
There's another way. You can't handle the Jews other than killing them. You know, blacks can say, yeah, there's prejudice against us in this country. We can't succeed. We cannot, back in the day, it was true. You couldn't be in an airplane. You couldn't be in a bus. It was a lot truer then. Obviously, this is not the case right now, but they may say, oh, you look at me and you're afraid of me. You look at me, you don't know if I'm Jewish. But once you know I'm Jewish, so many people want to kill me. And that's so much worse than just you look at me and just feel uncomfortable about my skin color. Maybe I don't want to take you for a job. Yeah, that's the problem with Jews. They're seeking, they were looking for who you are, for your DNA and your ancestry. And then they killed you. That was in Germany, that was other places, and that's still the case today.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, the left gets it so backward. I mean, you go back to the story of Esther and Haman trying to wipe out the Jewish race. You can see this through history. And yet, what are the left going to do? They're going to call the Jews genocidal maniacs. It's victim blaming. It's absolutely topsy-turvy. And that's what Marxism does. That's what communism does. It's all about chaos. And I've said this so many times on this show. The oligarchy, the people in charge, the elites, whatever you want to call them, they'll use the left. They've got all these willing stooges, people who will do whatever they've been told. They'll use them and then they'll destroy them because they're a means to an end. They're not going to bring any justice. I mean, look at the fruits of this group. It's brought violence. It's brought chaos. It's brought division. So I'm so glad that you're speaking out. Just know, Shiry, that you have a lot of support, a lot of friends. We're going to have to stand together. And this is one thing, we talk about Israel being a strategic ally and all the rest, all those pragmatic things. But ultimately, the Christian peoples, or even people who don't identify as Christian, but who are living those values, whether they know it or not, and the Jewish people, we are brethren. We share commonalities of culture. We're overlapping cultures, and this is a cultural war. And these forces, this new axis of evil, they're trying to destroy our culture. So if we as the United States were to allow Israel to be wiped out, the Jews to be wiped out, we lose so much as a people. We lose a part of ourselves. So it would be sort of like losing your brother. Why wouldn't you defend your brother or your sister? And that's the way I look at it.
Well, and Israel is just in the way. America has been the target of Iran and others, China, of course, Russia. They don't like America. So if Americans think that you can just go and wave a little flower in front of the Russians' face, or the Chinese or the Arabs, and they're going to be, oh, we really love you and your concept of how you should live your life, then you're wrong. We saw that in 9/11. I'm sure there have been many, many other attempts to create chaos in this country that were treated before they happened. But with the border being opened, it's very dumb to just do something right now randomly and create chaos. They have to be methodical. They have to get their cells going. They have to make sure that they're bringing in the people and the methods. And what happened in Israel is just a preview to what will happen, if not this year, next year, if not next year, in 5 years, if not in 5 years. My children will experience that, not just as Jews, but as Americans, because we have still a lot of Americans captives in Gaza. There's a lot of actually all kinds of different nationalities in Gaza right now. So they don't really care. They want to kill. They want to kill anyone who is not Muslim. That's the extreme Islamic Nazism. This is what it's about. It's about to if you're not a Muslim, you got to be dead.
It's coming here. I get on the ground reports of how many military-aged men are pouring in, and those who understand what's going on say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And my concern is that we're going to have some events like that happen before people are going to finally wake up. And we'll get to the point where some of these European nations are right now, saying we have to close our borders. We have to get the bad people out, and we need to have standards and vet people. I mean, my Border Patrol friends are saying, look, we're being given unconstitutional orders. We're hardly even processing people. We have no ability to vet them. They could be a Hamas terrorist. They could be a Chinese Communist Party, People's Republic of China army member. We don't know. They're just pouring in. And now some Border Patrol agents are being attacked and killed. So
it's going to get a lot worse if people think that.
I think so.
This really has to end, and it's going to come back to leadership. I really hope things will change and that's what I'm saying. Even if Biden is helping Israel right now, well, you should have ordered your border closed with these events. You know that there's danger in an idea that is the Western world. So close your damn border and make sure that you're keeping your people safe.
Absolutely. We'll keep pushing toward that and doing our part. And, just relationships like this, where we collaborate, we talk together. It's so very important. But God bless you, Shiry, and just thanks for coming on today on short notice. And you got a friend with us. What do you think the British feel about Joe Biden and his administration?
A joke, an embarrassment. Is this man really the leader of the free world?
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Hey, Eli. Wish you could be here.
Hey, Eli. How you doing, brother? Keep fighting.
Thank you so much for fighting the good fight for truth and scientific objectivity.
Thank you so much.
I think God is testing each individual. Who are you going to bow down to? Him, who creates you every instant in time, gives you strength, fortitude, and ability to deal with the unknown and fear? Or are you going to bow down to sociopathic oligarchs like Bill Gates?
This is just the beginning. We're going to see 5-10 years of dramatic upheaval taking place in American life and around the world.
So I embraced it and jumped full bore into the Patriot Barbie. And it's been 3 years, and it's actually been really, really purposeful and fruitful and glorious.
Oh, that's so great. And as you know, I'm a fellow Oregonian. We actually moved from Bend, Oregon after I'd been there for 14 years. And even before COVID, we had experienced this level of persecution at the time.
Because I've been outspoken, the government waged all-out war on us, but we decided to just stand our ground.
The other thing is the police use of force that day. Video footage, body cam footage, which we've gotten, which is not, I think, publicly available currently, shows significant abuse of force. I mean, to the point where some of these officers should face potential charges for murder or attempted murder.
I love Rudyard Kipling's If. It's practically like scripture to me because it's so very good, you know, and I've had to stoop down and build things back up with worn out tools before. It's great advice for a young man. In fact, it's in my book, Guidebook for a Son.
I'm really glad we get to catch up and I get to spend a little time learning more about you.
How would you describe the Reawaken tour? I mean, you've been to it. I'm putting them on and organizing them and filling them up, but I would love to get your thoughts on it because you were there and would love to get you kind of hear your experience.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that. I'll tell you what, this was so great, John. I mean, you got under their skin. And like I told you before, I was arrested for saying some words that I was just reading out, but you brought it, man.
We've got to get back to being good, treating one another with dignity and respect. And I believe in the American people, and I believe that this American spirit will win the day, that the Constitution will, despite the fact that it might be hanging by a thread, will hold, and we will be able to restore America to what it's been and what the Founding Fathers built. So that's a long way of saying, yes, I believe in America, but we definitely have some issues that we need to address, and we better wake up as Americans before we lose it.
Thank you so much, Kelly. You know, the reality is that the title of that book is It's Perfectly Normal. It's for kids 10 and up. That book is in numerous school systems around America, not just in Asheville, North Carolina, but it's everywhere. And the title of the book shouldn't be It's Perfectly Normal. It should be It's Perfectly Perverted.
Hey everybody, welcome to Freedom Talk. I'm so delighted to have Riley Gaines here.
I've got a little video of when I met you. I'm going to play that.
Awesome. Give me a hug. No way.
Come here.
I'm not coming over there.
Let's go.
Forget it.
Pronto.
What are you doing?
I'm with it. I'm hip.
That was really awesome right now. I thought you actually had video of us meeting. That was priceless.
I don't have video. I have a couple pictures, but you definitely upped my coolness factor. My wife said she'd leave me if I tried to make a rap song or something.
Have a look behind you.
If you never accept that you're beaten, you never will be. And we have to have that persistence. We have to stand together, and we need to be united. We are up against dark forces. They can't win if we have a spine and a backbone. We don't even have to be the majority. We have to be tireless and committed. We do not back down.